Hello, this is Charlotte Bascom, and this is my Building a Better Bread experiment. I took a bunch of tips from the first time we did this, and I made some adjustments in hopes of making a better bread. So what I needed, it's the same thing as last time. All the ingredients are the exact same, except I'm going to be adding more water. I decided to add more water because I also wrote this down in the document, the Word document that was due with this project. But adding more water to your dough as you're kneading it, well, it can be harder because it makes a stickier dough and it makes it harder to work with because, as we had been taught in the first time we made dough, if it's too sticky, add flour. If it's too stiff, add some water. I pushed that and added as much water as I could to where to the point where it was still I could still work with it. I just had to be careful because it was still pretty moist and it kept falling apart a bit. But adding water from some of the research I did, helps to make it more leaven. It goes in and it helps to create more air pockets and bubbles and make it taller and stiffer, and less dense. So that was what I went for, was to make it more leaven. So here's the process. So you're going to take a third of your starter and you're going to mix it into your big bowl with all of your water and all of your salt. Now, when I say all of your water, I mean all of the water that is shown here, 1 1/8 cup of water. I ended up adding extra later, but add 1 1/8 cup of your water. The whole process is going to be the same minus the adding of the water. So you're going to slowly add in 1 cup of flour at a time, mixing in with your whisk to make sure that all the lumps are out. And once it gets too thick for your whisk, you're going to take your wooden spoon and you're going to start to mix it in. You should mix in about 3 cups of your flour, leaving about a half a cup of flour left. You're going to take this. You're going to take the leftover flour, and you should have a half a cup left, and you're going to sprinkle some onto a solid, clean surface. You're not going to sprinkle all of it, but you're going to sprinkle some onto a solid, clean surface, and you're going to take your mixture out of the bowl, and you're going to start to knead it. You should knead this for about 10 minutes, and it should be consistent. It should start to hurt your arm. So this is where my extra step comes in. This is what I did not do last time that I did differently this time. As I'm kneading, I'm going to be adding in extra water. So I didn't add as much flour to my surface because I knew it was going to be sticky, and it was sticky. But I ended up adding in an extra 2 tablespoons, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it added up quickly, and it got to be super tough to work with. I had to knead it extremely fast. I was working faster than I did last time because it was just melting in my hands. It was still a dough-like consistency, but it was almost like if I hadn't added in that extra cup and a half of flour. Step 5, you're going to take your medium-sized bowl and add a little bit of olive oil to your bowl. You're going to take your bread that you just made, and you're going to put it in the bowl. The last time I made this, the dough had some texture to it, and this time when I put it in my bowl with some olive oil, it just completely morphed the size of the bowl. It just took up the space, and I'm going to cover that in plastic wrap. You're going to leave this for up to 12 hours at room temperature. So I did this experiment at night. Step 6, you're going to take your dough out and you're going to begin to fold in the bottoms. This is the exact same as I did last time. It was extremely hard. While I did leave this out for 12 hours at room temperature, it was very hard to keep it from just completely melting through my fingers. I worked very fast and I did not do this for very long. And once I did, put it back in the bowl with my towel and my flour and the extra towel on top of it that was wet, it didn't have such a smooth, soft surface. I put it in and it just kind of, once again, melted to the bowl. So I did end up adding quite a lot of flour into the bottom of my bowl with the towel because I knew it was going to be incredibly sticky. You're going to place this bread smooth side down into the bowl, and you're going to cover the bread with that wet towel, and this is going to stay at room temperature for 2 hours, and then I'm going to transfer it to the fridge for 1 extra hour. I did a bit longer than 1 extra hour. I did about an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. I was hoping that it would hopefully set a little bit harder because it was still quite liquidy. After your dough's been in the fridge for an hour to an hour and 45 minutes, you're going to set your timer, your oven to 375 degrees. So this is where I was extremely worried to work with my dough, and I worked even faster than I did last time. So you take your dough out, and I worked fast. I got a baking sheet ready, and I sprinkled a lot of flour onto it. I knew that the excess would just brown a little bit and burn, but I went a bit more heavy on the flour because my dough was very sticky. So you're going to quickly flip your dough from your bowl over onto the baking sheet. This is the same process as last time. Once your dough is onto the bowl, onto the baking pan, you're going to slowly take off the bowl and the towel. This is where I ran into a little bit of a problem, and I was kind of worried about it at first, but it ended up being okay. I was worried about taking the towel off because I was worried that it was going to stick to the dough. And as I started to peel up one side, it was sticking to my dough. So I went for the other side, and it completely came off fine. So I just didn't powder the whole bowl the same, and one side came off perfectly, and the other side I had to kind of work it off. But there wasn't as much texture on top as last time. Last time I did this, there was a bit of texture from my towel that showed, like a little pattern design, and this time there wasn't because I coated it in flour. I knew it was going to stick. Step 12, you're going to take a small knife and you're going to make slits in your bread. This can be whatever design you want. You're going to bake for 45 minutes, 375. I baked for a bit longer because my dough was pretty sticky and liquidy. Not super liquidy. I shouldn't say liquidy. That's the wrong word. But it was definitely sticky and a different texture than last time. So I baked 375, and I went to about an hour and 5 minutes. And I checked on it occasionally, and I knocked on the top after 45 minutes, and that's when I ended up leaving it in for further. I checked up on it about every 10 minutes. And then I added the same 6 to 7 ice cubes into the base of my bowl and to the base of my oven, and that helped it bake with the humidity. I don't know if that was definitely necessary, especially with how liquidy it already was. But then I took my bread out once the timer went off. Like I said, I checked in an extra 10 minutes a couple times to about an hour and 5 hour and 10 minutes. You're going to take your bread out and put it on a drying sheet. I, once again, used a cookie drying sheet. It just helped it better. And you're going to let your bread dry for an hour, and then you're going to enjoy it. So this was where I actually ended up seeing the differences in my bread. So my plan was to make it more leave-in this time. That's why I did the water. I did a little bit of research on that, and I had seen a couple people say, use extra water. It will help. And I actually had my sister use her camera to get a really good shot of the inside of my bread. So these are the overall views of my bread. This was on the left side. This is the picture of my old bread, which looks like bread. It looks delicious. And then on the right side, this is the picture of my new bread. I thought it looked really good, and I was really excited about it. I just made my slits a little bit longer on the sides. And then this is where I was so incredibly happy. I did do this 2 times. I did it the first time. I should say 3. I did it the first time with Mr. Clapp. Then I tried it with the water for the second time, and I was like, it's going to be different. And it wasn't how I wanted it to be. It was not as airy, it was not as fluffy. So I ended up doing it a 3rd time, and I was extremely happy. As you can see, this is the picture that was taken on the right side of the new bread with the camera, and I was so incredibly happy. It was delicious. It was airy. There was bread and jam and butter. It was so good, and you can see the difference. Obviously, the first picture is not good because it was off of my phone and not a camera, and like a nice camera on the right side. But I was so incredibly happy. So this was my 3rd attempt. My overall conclusion: while I know my pictures aren't all that great, the pictures on the right side of the screen on both those slides were better because they were taken with that nice camera. But because I really wanted to show the air pockets and how it turned out overall. I probably should have included the second time I tried to make this bread and not the 3rd, because I could have used that in comparison as well. In the 3rd time, I did end up adding a bit more water, and that ended up helping out. It was a lot harder to work with, but it worked. Overall, the water did pretty well, and you can clearly see the difference in density from the first bread and the 3rd bread, I should say. That picture was taken right when it came out of the oven, and it was cut fresh, open, and warm. But after about 5 minutes, it did start to deflate a little bit. However, it was still delicious. We used bread and butter and jam, and it was very good. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching.